The subject I want to talk about is something that's been going on since the very beginning. It's something we're all familiar with. And when we look at what happened to David with Saul years and years and years and years, thousands of years ago, it was going on then. Let's just read briefly here in 1 Samuel 18, verse 7 and 8. What do we see here? So the women sang as they danced and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. David had just come back from slaying many, many Philistines. And here he was, a small man. And here was Saul in stature, a tall man of great strength. And yet they were talking about David slaying his 10,000s. And Saul, as it says in verse 8, then Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him. And then if you drop on down, if you go to verse 10, as it happened on the next day that the distressing spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied inside the house. So David played music with his hand, as he had at other times, but there was a spear in Saul's hand. And Saul cast that spear at David. He said, I will pin David to the wall. And he wasn't talking about pinning David to the wall by his tunic or something. He was talking about pinning him to the wall right through his chest. What do we see there? When you go all the way back to Genesis chapter 4, it's really starting then. It had already started, but it was brought to us in chapter 4 about Cain and Able. There was a great deal of trouble between Cain and Abel before Cain killed Abel, right? Or he murdered Abel. What's causing all that? Where's it coming from? Well, we know it's coming from Satan, but how does Satan get to people? He works on us and gets us to be distressed over other people, get angry with other people, and pretty soon you're to the point of hatred. And hatred will bring about all kinds of distress, all kinds of various things, leading to murder eventually, if it's not dealt with. And what do we see in today's society? We see hatred. We see a lot of it. It's everywhere. We see it in the government. We see it in local politicians. They may say they don't hate, but actually there is a lot of hatred. They may not even believe it themselves, but it's there, and you see it. And you see it in individuals, and we all come in contact with it at various times. And it's interesting, I've had a friend for, probably close to 60 years now, known him real well, not in the church, but just the other day, a little incident happened, and he blamed it on Trump. And it was amazing. He's a very easygoing, kind of a gentle kind of guy, but I've seen it before in him, especially about certain people. There is this hatred. And I imagine if I spoke to him about it, he would deny it, but I can see it in him. And it was just a small little incident, and he blamed it all on Trump. And it didn't have anything to do with Trump or anything. But he said, that's Trump's fault. I said, wowee. Where's this all going? Well, we know in the future it's just going to get worse, isn't it, brother? It's going to be all about us, all around us. Right now, we don't see it per se in the church or against the church, but it's coming. It's coming on the church, and it's coming on you and I. And we've all been in situations where we've probably reacted in the wrong ways. I know I have. And it's something we have to really work on, is not starting with anger and then letting it grow to hatred. So what are we going to do in the future as the hatred grows, How are we going to handle it? What do we say? What do we do? You know, as Christians, we have this obligation to live by God's very word. And his word tells us how to handle it, even though it's not going to be easy. And I'm just going to spend a little bit of time in Matthew 5. Nothing new here, nothing new to us. We've read this how many times? Sermon on the Mount. Jesus Christ, in a sense, giving us our marching orders and how we are to react in various situations. And if we go to Matthew 5, 9 through 12, let's just take a quick look at this. We're all, like I said, we're all very familiar with this. This is not new ground we're plowing or anything. Verse 9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God." Peacemakers. When you're angry and upset, are you really a peacemaker? Or are you just trying to defend yourself, maybe in the wrong way? I mean, there's a right way to be angry. But most of the time, our anger is not in the right vein. It's usually getting us in trouble. So, blessed are the peacemakers. They should be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. For theirs is the kingdom of God. Righteousness' sake. That means you've got to be living by God's law. You've got to be living by his word. And they've got to see it. They're just not observing you casually and thinking, well, that guy's a jerk. No, if we're doing righteously, being righteous, they will notice. They will notice your acts and how you act and react to various situations. So continuing on here in verse 10, it says, "For theirs is the kingdom of heaven." It can't get any better than that, being a son of God and being a part of the kingdom of heaven. So then continuing on in verse 11, "Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you, falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." So true. Anybody who stood up for the truth and lived righteously and was not afraid to speak the truth, they were persecuted. And I know myself, I'm starting to get to the place where I speak up more. I used to just kind of keep my mouth shut when things came up. But I've been trying to speak up a little bit more about God's ways, how he would look at things. My worldview now is the Bible, God's ways, not man's ways. Because all man's ways, it just leads to trouble, hatred, violence, death. So when we read on here a little bit further in Matthew 5:44, Jesus Christ continues. Matthew 5:44. "But I say to you, love your enemies." This isn't, oh, maybe you should love your enemies. Maybe you shouldn't be upset. No. Marching orders right here. Love your enemies. Bless them who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Boy, how hard is that? How hard is that? You know, this really isn't for your enemy's sake. It's for your sake. It's to change us, for us to become more like Jesus Christ and God. For when you look at Jesus Christ, the perfect man God, he was perfect, and he was persecuted, the worst persecution you could ever think of. And did he get angry? Did he get mad? Did he hate? He never did. And he was so perfect, he was willing, as a perfect human being, to die for those who have persecuted him, for you and I, for everyone. from Stalin to Hitler to right on down the line. Love your enemies. That's for us. But it may also change your enemies. You look at what happened in World War II. There were captives, German captives, that were brought to this country and put in internment camps. But they were also put out to work in various areas. My uncle's apple orchard over in eastern Washington, German captives came over there and picked fruit. And there was only one guard with them. One guard. I don't know, I never did find out how many roughly were in the orchard, but there were quite a few. And my uncle asked him, I said, well, it's just one of you. They could jump you and they take off. And he said, well, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? They're not going to swim back to Germany? But as I've been doing a little bit of research on this, found out a lot of those German captives that came over here were treated so well. They wanted to stay. They didn't want to go back to Germany. And some of them did stay. So sometimes you can influence others by your love and by what you do and how you react. So continuing on here, here's the capstone. Here's the reward for loving your enemies and being who you should be, living by God's word and God's ways. Verse 45, after you've been persecuted, 45 says that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. That you may be sons and daughters of your Father in heaven. That's it, brethren. That's what we're striving for. Don't let hatred become a part of your life. Eschew it. Get rid of it. Learn to truly love. And also remember what Proverbs 15:1 says. A soft answer can turn away anger. That's hard to do, but God will give us strength and power and the ability to grow and overcome and become like Jesus Christ and himself.